The following program is being brought to you on the Voice America Empowerment Channel. For more information about our network and to check out additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit voiceamericaempowerment.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the following program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.
Welcome to Living Well with Ann Beal. Our show is a health show, a lifestyle show, and an empowerment show rolled into one. Get ready to hear some stories of success, healthy living tips, and suggestions to get motivated and live your best life. Now, here is your host, Ann Beal.
Hi, welcome to Living Well. I have a wonderful guest on today, Ray Maldonado from In-N-Out Burger. I don't know if you love hamburgers, but if you haven't tried an In-N-Out Burger, you will be amazed. You need to go out and find one. They are wonderful. Ray is the Regional Manager for In-N-Out Burger. Is that right, Ray?
That's correct.
We are so excited to have you on the show. Thanks for coming.
Pleasure to be here.
It's kind of crazy today. We have a rainstorm in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And so we both had a little trouble getting here, but thank God we're here.
Safe and sound.
Safe and sound. I don't want you guys to miss out on In-N-Out Burger and its background. And so there's two reasons I have Ray on today. Number one, I want you to hear about In-N-Out Burger. I bet you do not know what wonderful background it is in the company and the burgers. And also, Ray has been with In-N-Out Burger for 46 years. And I just want you to hear his story. It's very empowering. And so, Ray.
Yes.
Why don't you fill everybody in on In-N-Out Burger?
Even before I started, I grew up in Southern California. And I was there for the first 40 years of my life. But even when I was a kid, my dad and my grandparents would take me to In-N-Out Burger. And so I never thought about working there or anything, but it was just there was very few in the San Gabriel Valley. We started in 1948. Harry Schneider was our founder and Esther Schneider.
Now, did you know them?
I did know them. And what's interesting about that is that I got promoted to a store manager in 1976. And I started at In-N-Out Burger in 1969.
Now, you were 16, right?
I was 16 when I started. And I was promoted to a store manager in 1976. I was the last store manager. Harry promoted me in 1976 of June. And he passed away in December of 76. So it's quite an honor to be, not only to know him, but to work for him, but to be promoted by him before he passed away. And it just, I knew them both. I was at their house for Christmas parties. Tells you what kind of a family environment In-N-Out Burger was all about. And still is today. Now, when I started, there was only 7 stores. And we have 304 stores today. So there's been 297 stores in 46 years.
Wow. Now, Esther and, what's his name?
Harry.
They started In-N-Out Burger back in
1948.
And he's the one who created the two-way speaker for drive-thrus, right?
He is.
Awesome.
He is.
See, that's my kind of guy. I just think that's awesome. And so for him, why did he do that? What was he thinking with that two-way speaker?
Well, he was an entrepreneur anyway. He was in the Merchant Marines, and he provided lunches and all that stuff. But he really wanted. Even if you look at our meat patties, the meat patty has never changed.
Wow.
But they used to make that meat patty inside. Esther would make the meat patties, and Harry would put them on the grill. That tells you how he would get up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and go to the produce market in Los Angeles and find the best produce to put on the burgers. So, when you think about hard work and you think about, just what it takes to make a business go today, He worked a tremendous amount of hours, but he would never compromise on the quality.
Well, and that's, when you say he would go shop for the finest produce, that's what the chefs do. Early in the morning, they get out and they find the freshest produce.
They do.
And they, some of the top chefs in the world love In-N-Out Burger. And there's a lot of reasons, and we'll talk more about that.
Okay.
So Esther and Harry started In-N-Out Burger, and you met them at 16, when you were 16?
It's a funny story because I started in May of 69, and it was probably, a couple months after I had started. And one of the things one of the only few things that I remember, because, you think about when you start someplace, there's a lot of information, you're trying to take it all in.
Yes.
But the thing that I remember the most was that nobody comes in our building and the door stays locked. And so in those days, in 1969, we didn't have an elaborate lock system. It was a deadbolt. And then when you came back in, because we had 2-lane drives, so the 2-lane drive was a car on each side with a small kitchen in the middle and a back room where we did the produce and all the other stuff in the back. So I heard a knock on the door, and I answered the door, and there was a small gentleman, about 5'6", 5'5", 5'6", bald man, and I never had seen him at that point in time. And there was a man that came in and says, "Hey, I want to come in." And I said, "I'm sorry, I can't let you in." And he says, "Yeah, you can." And I said, "No, I can't." And he says, "Well, go ask the cook in there," which is what we called the managers in those days were cooks, right? So I go in and I ask him, and I said, "There's a guy that wants to come in the back, and I'm not going to let him in." And he says, "To come and ask you." So he looks out the window and he goes, "Hey, that's Harry Snyder." So I walk around the car and I'm thinking, well, this was a great job for a couple of months before I could say anything. And he sticks out his hand and he says, "My name's Harry Snyder. I want to thank you for doing your job."
You were doing your job, not letting anybody in.
I was doing my job, and he was appreciative. So it was this very small. I learned at that point in time just how to appreciate people, no matter if you were the owner of the company or whatever you were, just to thank people for doing a great job. And I've been thanked for 46 years for whatever I've been doing. And I try to pass that on to my people.
Which is why you've stayed.
I have stayed. I've stayed because I've worked for the owners, every single one of them. And I know how special they feel about In-N-Out Burger, but I know how special they feel about the people that work for them.
So you started out, what was your job at 16? What did you do?
It was called a backroom boy.
A backroom boy.
In those days, it wasn't, we didn't have any women working in those days.
Whoa.
Okay, so it was all males in those days. Obviously, as we started to progress, and I think it was in 76, 77 when we hired our first female. I would almost tell you now that it's probably 55, 45 female to male now at In-N-Out Burger.
Well, the first female would have been Esther. Cooking.
Well, you're right. You're right.
You know.
But in the
But
kitchen,
after that.
right after that, yeah, you're right.
So I wonder what the logic was behind that.
You know what? Inside those little 2-lane drives, it's very hectic, and it's a quick pace. And I'm not sure that I don't think anybody's discriminating, but I don't think anybody from the outside, a female, looked inside and said,
"I want to work there.
I want to be part of that."
I can totally agree, because they didn't have the tables on the inside or the outside.
Exactly.
It was just drive-through, but traffic was a problem eventually.
Yes.
And so they had to add the inside and outside, so people could sit. So you were a backroom boy.
Backroom boy.
And then where did you move to from there?
So then I got, in those days, it was like, it was not unheard of to spend 6 months to a year in the back. But I only spent 3 months before I moved up to the front. And then I started to progress. And today we have levels of development. In those days we didn't.
Didn't have levels.
No, we didn't have levels. It was just based on a skill set that you had. And if you showed a skill set, then you started to move up. So I had a pretty good skill set, so I was able to move up, and I worked through high school.
Well, so that's what I was wondering. You were in high school at the time. Mm-hmm. How much were you working?
Well, my junior year, I was playing high school football. Whoa. And I was working, and I was going to school. So I was, 20, 25 hours, you know. But it was pretty hectic.
I can imagine.
It was pretty hectic.
25 hours for a high school kid, that's a lot of work, plus football.
Plus football.
So you weren't home much?
No, I wasn't.
Goodness. And how'd you do in school?
I did pretty well, but obviously something had to give.
Yeah.
And I was pretty skillful. I had a lot of common sense, so I would use that common sense to try and skip through some things. And I found out that wasn't going to work, so I had to apply myself. So it only took a couple times where I went to parochial high school, Bishop Montgomery High School in La Puente. So, you know, you have a lot of counselors and things. So if you start to slip at all, they're going to let your parents know. And so when I found that out, that something had to give. So I didn't play high school football my senior year, and I was just really working and going to school. So I knew that I couldn't do it all. I couldn't balance it all.
Was it hard for you to quit football?
It was hard to quit football. I loved football, but I wasn't quite as good at football as I was at In-N-Out Burger.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Well, and it's so cool that you moved up so quickly. You know, when you started the job, what did you think?
I thought this was just going to be a job to get me through high school and into college. And I wanted to be a mechanical engineer. I like putting things together and making it work. In that year, too, I got a car and I blew the engine. So my brother-in-law was helping me overhaul the engine. So I was working, going to school, and overhauling the motor at the same time.
Wow.
So I really like doing that stuff. So that was going to be I ended up graduating high school, and then I went to Mount Sac College, and I was going to college, and I was like, this college, you know, I like school, but I'm really good at this. And so I had to make a decision, and I never forget when I told my parents really wanted me to go to school, and they wanted me to get an education, they wanted me to graduate from college. And I just wasn't devoting the time that I needed to do to be successful in school. And when I told my mother that I was going to quit school and I was going to work full time, she's very disappointed. But I will tell you this, she got over that disappointment in 1992, which there's an award called the Harry Snyder Award that's given to someone in and out who is very special, or they see the qualities that Harry, and I won that award in 1992, and my parents were at that meeting when I got that award. So I can tell you that I could tell my mom wasn't as disappointed in 92 as she was in 71.
Well, they also saw that you were making good money for your age, because I know they had to have rewarded you.
They did.
And that's one of the things that In-N-Out is known for, is that they pay their employees well. So you felt like you would do a better use of your time and your skills to stay and work at In-N-Out. Can you explain why?
Well, a couple of things. You know, there's certain things that you have to realize when you're making a decision of what you want to do. Okay. First of all, do you absolutely love what you're doing? You have to absolutely love what you're doing. And I tell people all the time before they make a decision to go into management, I said, you know, anything that you do can be repetitious, and repetition leads to mundane. And then all of a sudden you're disenchanted in what you're doing. So you got to think into the future and say, is this something I can do for 30 years? I wasn't thinking 46 at the time.
46 is a long time.
But is this something you could do for 30 years? And I absolutely loved, I still love cooking today, right? I don't cook in the stores anymore. I think I'm not good enough to do that anymore. But I love to grill and I love to cook at home.
That's your hobby, kind of, isn't it?
It really is, because I still love to satisfy people. And you've got to have that thing inside of you that says you want customer satisfaction. You know, my wife says, I'm always trying to feed people and I'm always trying to put food out of them. But I learned that as a kid, you know, from my grandmother and my grandparents and my parents when we would have people over, is being a great host. Being a great host.
Well, I know that a lot of men love to grill. Okay. And it's funny that I really don't know a woman who told me she loves to grill. I'm sure there are. But I saw that was one of your favorite things. You still love to cook.
I do.
Yeah. So that's awesome. It fits perfectly. But you started at 16 and you moved up. Now, that was not in La Puente, California. Where was the actual?
West Covina.
That was the first In-N-Out?
The first In-N-Out was in Baldwin Park.
Baltimore?
Baldwin.
Baldwin Park, California.
Mm-hmm. It's where our corporate office is today.
Oh, okay. So it was very small because the In-N-Outs then just had the 2 drive-throughs on each side with a little square in the middle, right?
Yes.
And they started in California.
We did.
And we lived in California and had In-N-Out Burger there and Carl's Jr. And when we moved here, first there was a Carl's Jr. Well, the Carl's Jr.'s have kind of not done, they're just not anywhere near as good. So when we saw In-N-Out the first time here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, we were very excited. And you brought those In-N-Outs here. If you're the regional manager, then you're the one that organized getting the In-N-Outs here in this area?
I organized all the people, and I went to many different parts of the company to arrange meetings with people because there was a lot of interest in coming to Texas. There's a lot of Texas provides a great lifestyle.
Yes,
I love it here, and so but it's a huge ordeal to move 2,400 miles away from what your family base is, and you really think about that. You think about opportunity, and you think about other things, but when you're far removed from family, in a great distance, there's nothing that you can do to gap those 2,000 miles. So you got to be prepared for what that entails in moving 2,000 miles away.
And you moved lots of people.
We moved lots of people.
Yes.
And I was in charge of that too.
So regional manager now means what?
Well, you're in charge. I oversee the divisional managers who oversee the store managers who oversee the associates at the stores. So
how many stores are actually under you?
We have 20. We have 26 right now. We'll probably have about 30 by the end of the year, but we're in San Antonio, we're in Austin, and we're all the way up to, Allen would be our furthest north store. But we have 4 more stores that are underway this year. So we also have a new warehouse facility that should break ground in the next year or two. I'm sorry, in the next month or two, that's sectioned off at the 35 and the 20. It's probably 150 to 200,000 square feet. Where we're going to be able to, we produce our own patties right now in Texas, and we've produced them for the day we've opened up the stores in Frisco and Allen.
Because you have that in Dallas, right? Is that what you're talking about, that warehouse?
Yes.
Because one of the things I don't know that people know is that In-N-Out, everything's very fresh, and they cook it upon order, right?
That's correct.
And everything is made near the store, as you call store, which we call restaurant, or and so. In order to make it fresh, to move here to this region, in this area, you had to make a warehouse here that had all the ingredients made here, right? So, or, made up here. So I assume you make the patties ahead of time, or do you just ship the meat to the stores?
No, well, we have in our Dallas facility, we have our butchers there, so we bone and grind daily. And that's shipped out to the stores every single day.
So it's fresh every day?
Every day.
Because can you tell us why a lot of the top chefs think In-N-Out is incredible?
Well, everything is done on a fresh basis every single day. So the tomatoes, and we have strict guidelines and produce guidelines on freshness, and we won't compromise anything. We won't compromise our standards for anything. So if it doesn't meet our standard, we won't serve it. So we have our butchers who bone and grind daily in our Dallas facility. And then we have our warehouse guys who take the meat out and all the other produce every single day to every one of our stores from San Antonio to Allen. Every single day we're doing that. And in the stores, we're leafing that lettuce, we're slicing that tomato, we're coring that tomato, we're slicing that onion, and we're making it within, if you see a tomato that's going in the water, it's going to be served. It's going to be on the burger in the next hour or two. So I've never seen anything that fresh.
Well, and I don't think there is in the fast food business, right?
That's correct.
And so that is part of why you had to make the inside eating and the outside eating tables was because it's made so fresh. Now, when I was reading about the history with Harry and Esther, the wait for a burger was 10 minutes, or the wait for your food was the minimal 10 minutes, and people would line up waiting.
That's correct.
And so they wanted these burgers. And I when I first saw In-N-Out Burger, and I saw that it had such a minimal menu of just burgers and fries. Is that it?
That's correct.
Of course, soda. Does it have shakes?
We do have shakes.
Shakes. Gotta have shakes.
Real ice cream.
Real ice cream.
Real ice cream.
Now, see, my show is called Living Well. And so I am pretty picky about the kind of people I have on. And In-N-Out is fresh, and it's, in my opinion, good for you. Now, they do fry their fries, okay, but you fry them the best way that you can so they're as healthy as possible.
Pure vegetable oil.
And still be good. And so the reason the wait, but I've waited. It doesn't take 10 minutes now. It doesn't seem to take that long. So they've kind of sped up the process. So the thing about having the warehouse here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So do you have In-N-Out in Arizona?
We do have In-N-Out in Arizona.
So are those come out of the warehouse in California?
Now, that meat is shipped out of our commissary in Baldwin Park to Arizona. We have a distribution center in Arizona, but everything is shipped over there, and they ship it to the stores in Arizona.
Because they can get there within 24 hours then.
Well, it's only 6 hours away from Baldwin Park.
Wow, that's cool. Okay, I didn't know that, because I do know it all is based on the meat that you can get within 24 hours somewhere, so that it's always fresh.
Always fresh.
That is amazing. Doesn't that feel good to know that you work for a company like that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, and they don't franchise as well.
We don't franchise.
So
you mentioned, can I tell you a little story?
Yes, please.
So you mentioned Carl's Jr. I was at Harry's funeral in 1976, and I was outside the service, and we were just visiting there. And a gentleman had approached me, and he says, "Do you work for In-N-Out?" I said, "I do." He says, "How long have you worked there?" I said, "About 7.5 years." And he asked me, why I stayed, and I told him, this is like 39 years ago, and I told him why at that point I had stayed, and I had no intentions of going anywhere else. Come to find out, he says, "Well, I just want to let you know, my name's Carl Karcher, and I sat on the National Restaurant Association board with Harry." And it's what an interesting comparison when you talk about Carl's Jr. because, now here's a man who started, Carl Karcher Enterprises, and then he sold off that enterprise, and the rest is history, as they say, right?
Right.
But In-N-Out won't do that.
Yeah, because the quality does go down. I mean, in some of the stores, as you call them, might not be, but you don't really have any control over that once you franchise off and go public, right?
That's correct.
So that In-N-Out wanted to keep control over quality. So therefore, they've grown slower, but in a lot of ways, better. I mean, when I look at the history of In-N-Out, I'm proud of that. And I'm proud to have you on because they've really cared a lot about quality. They've cared about their people. So they pay people more than most other, would you say any other fast food place, or do you know?
I don't know if anybody makes the wage in the quick service industry, quick service restaurant industry as we do. Because
they said starting out in California, the minimal pay there for a starting person is $10.50.
$11.
$11 now. Wow. What is it here?
It's $10.50.
That is why the college students line up. This is the place to interview. Yeah, this is the place to get a job in college because the money is good. And hopefully the work is fun, right?
Oh, it's a blast.
Yeah. So for you, it's been an exciting journey. I mean, I look at you now and what you do. Did you ever imagine regional manager?
No, I didn't.
Did they even have that title?
They didn't have that title.
Because they've come a long ways. So how many jobs have you had?
Well, everything that at In-N-Out, if you're in operations, you've done every job that there is. In other words, that you've been an associate. You went through every rank, which is we have a fourth manager, a third manager, an assistant manager, and a store manager. And I've been through every one of those. And then I was divisional manager. When I went from I went from Southern California to Northern California because I went to become a divisional manager, and that's where the expansion was. So I went up there. And then I went from, then we moved out to Arizona. They had asked me to go out there. So I went from California to Arizona. And then I went from Arizona back to California. And then I became a regional manager, and then I moved back to Arizona. And then they asked me to come out to Texas.
Wow. Yeah, and you provide a very good life for your family, because I met some of your family, and you've done very well with In-N-Out.
I have.
And that's afforded a good lifestyle for your family. But they seem to really appreciate the money. You know, they don't seem spoiled or anything like that. And I'm always drawn by that. And so I'm excited about that. You know, it's when some people think about In-N-Out Burger, because I told people you were going to be on, and somebody said, oh, that's where Paris Hilton was on her way to when she got her DWI or DUI. And I was like, how in the world do you know that? That was funny to me that they said that. I was like, how do you know stuff like that? And I said, are you like trivia? And they said, no, she really was. She really was. I was like, okay. And so then she started to tell me about other stars that love In-N-Out Burger. Now, my friend's from LA as well. And so I want to talk about that when we get back from break.
Okay.
Why they all, you know, why is it so big that they would go out of their way to go to In-N-Out Burger? And do you ever see these stars? Have you ever met any of them when they're in the store?
Yes.
Who have you met?
You know what? I was when I was the divisional manager in California. I was over the store 102, which is Hollywood. It's interesting because I was there. You know, we have the Oscar Awards, and so I was there that night. I was going to do. Oprah Winfrey wanted to come down and do a show at our store, and she got tied up with that. So I was at the store, but people are getting their Oscars, and they're in their limos, stopping at the Hollywood store to get a burger. Now, there's a lot about that huge party that's party after.
Right.
And there's a big, if you watch the Oscars, which my wife loves to watch them, is, she likes to watch the whole thing, the red carpet and then the party after, and they show all that stuff. But I was at Ground Zero. I was at that store, and I saw a lot of those young people and come. The guy, I remember this because this is in 2005. So the guy wins the humanitarian award at the Oscars, and he comes in and he's in his tuxedo, and he's sitting down, and he's taking his bow tie off, and he's having his double fry and a shake, and he's just totally enjoying, his burger there. And I see all these stars come in. And
so who was that? Do you remember who it was?
I don't remember who it was, but what's interesting, Anna, is because I'm asking all these people, who's that? And they're explaining to me who that person was.
Well, I do understand that because, I lived in Malibu, and so you see stars a lot. And so being in Hollywood, right where the Oscars are, what a great place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be so cool. So of all the places, when I think of Hollywood, where the Oscars is, yeah, definitely they would go to you. The freshest thing out there. And so that's cool. See, I think that's really wonderful. So we're going to talk more about Ray Maldonado's life.
Okay.
And over the last 46 years at In-N-Out. And talk more about In-N-Out itself. We'll talk to you right after the break.
Okay.
It's your world. Motivate, change, succeed. VoiceAmericaEmpowerment.com.
Most married men experience frustration because there are things they want from their wives but don't know how to get them. Nothing seems to work. Desires are unfulfilled, fantasies unrealized, and relationships become stagnant. Men are desperate today for a richer, deeper, more satisfying, and intimate marriage. Dr. Jim Slaughter teaches men how to have the passionate, fulfilling marriage they've always wanted. Call 817-991-4964 or email jslaughterphd@yahoo.com to begin transforming your marriage into what you want it to be.
It's time to access your magic. Tune in each week to Living in the Magic of Possibilities with your host, Glenise Hughes. Our topics cover finances, personal health, business, relationships, mediumship, and so much more. If you want to access all that is possible in your life, listen to Glenise and her expert guests who've turned the impossible into the possible. Living in the Magic of Possibilities is heard live every Thursday at 3 p.m. Pacific Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Empowerment Channel.
We're on Facebook along with some of the greatest minds of the world, and that includes you. Visit us on Facebook at Voice America Empowerment.
You are listening to Living Well with Ann Beal. We'd love to hear from you with comments and questions about the show. Please send us an email to ablivingwell@gmail.com. That's ablivingwell@gmail.com. Now, back to this week's show.
Welcome back. I have Ray Maldonado here today. We are talking about In-N-Out Burger and his wonderful 46-year career and all about the freshness of In-N-Out. And if you haven't tried one of those wonderful burgers and fries and shakes, you should get there. Tell them where In-N-Out is right now. What states is it in?
California, Arizona, Nevada, Utah, Texas, and soon to be in Oregon later this year.
Soon to be in Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you're not heading that up, are you?
No, I'm not.
Goodness.
This was my last stop.
I thought, whoa, that would be a lot of work. You just finished this one. And you still have how many stores here? 4 more?
We have 4 more this year, but I would say, we're trying to build about, 5 or 6 a year in Texas.
That's incredible. That's a lot of stores.
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of hours do you work now?
I work, whatever the job requires, but it's just like, yesterday I had meetings in Ballmore Park the day before, so I was in Ballmore Park, and then I went to I had a 6 a.m. flight from LAX to Austin, and I needed to meet with some people in Austin, and then I took a flight from Austin back to home to Dallas yesterday.
Wow. So you travel quite a bit.
There's a little bit of travel involved.
A little bit of travel.
A little bit of travel.
Just a little bit. You love travel?
It's the end justifies the means, and it's just what I have to do to be able to get to people, to get to the stores. That's the most important thing. They need to feel valued.
Well, in business, people who travel a lot, it just becomes like instead of the commute to work, it's just part of the commute. It's just what they do. And they think of the airplane kind of like we think of cars. It's just to get there, And so you must travel. How long you been traveling like that?
Ever since, 2000. Well, I really started traveling when I became a division manager from 94. But really, the large travel started in 2004. So for the last 11 years, I've been doing a lot of traveling.
So after store manager, you become a divisional manager?
That's correct.
And then you're over how many stores?
As much, anywhere from about 5 to 10.
And then when you become regional manager, you're over divisional managers?
Yes, you are.
So how many?
Usually it's probably a group of 6 to 8 people. I currently have 4.
Wonderful. Well, I know that In-N-Out has a university.
We do.
Is it like a real college, or is it a training place for In-N-Out? What would you call that?
I would say it's definitely a training center. It's where all levels of management get training, and even our store managers. Because when I first, Rich is really the one that started the university.
Rich Snyder,
and he had this. He was just a visionary about where he wanted to take In-N-Out Burger.
Now, he was the second son of Harry and Esther.
That's correct.
Not the first son.
No.
So the oldest didn't take over.
Not at first. At
right.
first.
Okay.
At first.
And let's see, Rich was 24, right?
He was.
He was young.
Just imagine, and I'll tell you a little story about that too, because remember I told you that he took over in 76, right? That same year, and I told you about our commitment to quality, right? Mm-hmm. So that year we had some I was the store manager at the store in Norwalk, and I called in and I needed the potatoes weren't just the right potato, and the tomatoes weren't as ripe as they should have been. I had some milk that it was within the date range, but it had curdling on the top of the lid. So I called the warehouse in Baldwin Park, and I told them exactly what the thing was, and they said, "Ray, we'll have you some product within the hour." Less than an hour and 45 minutes. Coming up to the back of the store with 5 lugs of tomatoes, 10 sacks of potatoes, and a case of milk. Driving in a black El Camino was Rich Snyder.
I was afraid you were going to say that. Really? That is so cool.
But I'll tell you, think about this. Taking over, first of all, grieving for your father.
Yeah.
Right? He had just lost his father a couple of weeks before, or a few weeks before that. But his commitment, that I really understood. I knew what Harry was all about, and I understood Harry's commitment to quality. But I also, at that moment in time, I understood that wasn't going to deviate. It was not going to deviate just because his father had passed. He was going to continue on his father's work.
So he believed in his father and what his father was doing.
Absolutely.
And you saw that.
I saw that firsthand.
Because that's quite a bit of commitment to get in your El Camino, which I think is cool, an El Camino. My dad had one of those, and drive you the food that you asked for to have it fresh.
Yes.
So he cared.
He did.
How far was that from where he was?
It's probably 35 minutes.
Awesome. It's
Yeah.
really awesome. And I Rich, I'm kind of endeared to Rich just reading about him and his faithfulness to his mom and dad, and the way that he carried on their legacy so well. And, now he started the scripture references on the packages.
That's correct.
And I don't know if anyone knows that they have them on there. I felt really like, God, I'm so not observant. Now, I had never noticed them. My husband loves In-N-Out Burger. And so he would always order, and he always unwraps the burger for me to make it where it's half, where I can eat it where I'm driving or whatever. He just serves me so well, I'm telling you. And so I was telling him, I said, the reason is because you take the package, and he started laughing about that because I don't really see the scriptures. But they're on the cups. They're on the packages of the burger and on the fries package. Mm-hmm. They're on the employees' paychecks.
Yes.
Still, they're on the drink cups, like the water cups inside in the stores.
Not the water cups, but not the clear cups, but on our drink cups on the bottom of the cups. But when they're not they're in an inconspicuous place where if you would see it, you would recognize it. But it's just a testament to what was Rich's faith and the faith of the Snyder family. So it wasn't something that he wanted to magnify, but it's something he wanted to know where his faith was and the faith of the Snyder family was.
Well, and it just sounds like that they're down to earth ways. The Harry and Esther, they really wanted people that came to work there to learn to save money and to prosper, but eventually go on to bigger things. They really didn't look at employees there as something for a career necessarily, but they were going to build them up, help them, and move on, like a starter job almost. But that is not the way it is now. And Rich saw it as, let's get the best people and keep them here. Did he start the university too? Or?
He did start the university. So when you look at it, I think it was because Harry was such an entrepreneur, and he had the chance to open up his own business, and he wanted to provide that opportunity should someone choose to be able to do that, to be able to provide that. Managers were making great money, so they choose to take that and open up their own business. That would be a great way to be able to segue into doing that. When Rich came along and took over the business, he kept that foundation, but he wanted to grow the company, and he wanted people to stay here, and he didn't want people to leave or go anywhere else. Not that Harry did, but he wanted people to have the opportunity Harry did. So when Rich came along, he was a huge visionary. That's when when I worked 6 days a week for 20 years. And then when Rich came along, he wanted people to work 5 days. And so hence the 5-day work week.
Whoa, okay. Because, I've worked with a lot of people in restaurant management, who've come to see me for life coaching. And that's one of I had no idea how demanding restaurant management is. And honestly, a lot of them hardly see their families. And so I just assume, because I know what I read was a store manager, the average store manager can make over $100,000.
That's correct.
But I thought he's working all the time. But no?
Not anymore.
What?
Not anymore. So, that's, I can't tell you, and what a great, I can't tell you how many people have missed so many from the old days, how many family events that they had missed.
Right.
And Rich didn't want that to happen. He wanted to have people who would stay, but also would not miss family events and, 5-day work week and, having a couple weekends off in the course of a 4-week period.
So is that part of the university, was actually teaching the managers how to do that?
How to schedule.
Scheduling.
How to hire people and how to make sure that you're staffing and training your people. So In-N-Out can only grow with the amount of qualified people that we have.
Right. And because you keep people, you retain people, which is so much different. Even hearing about you, I thought, I'm going to go research this, because companies, they don't keep people as long. People aren't as loyal. Companies aren't as loyal. And I thought, what is it about In-N-Out Burger that you would have stayed that long? Because when you think of it as you think of McDonald's, or you think of Wendy's, or I've met people that were, and none of them have been there that long. Maybe Wendy, I don't know, but she's young. So her dad, I don't know. And you just don't hear it like that. So when I started researching about In-N-Out, I was blown away at their averages for retaining. And it said that McDonald's averages 1 year to 2 years. Starter people, no, it was even less than that for a new person that works, coming up in high school or whatever. But you guys, it said 10 years. And then a starter person that was doing it part-time for school or what might be 2 years at the average. But it was higher. It was more than double. And I was just blown away by that. And so I'm assuming it's not only the pay that is better, you really reward good work, but the schedule.
Absolutely. Anna, I read an article about 2 or 3 years ago. It was about loyalty. And it started out with the question, how many jobs do you think someone will have by the age of 30 years old? And if I asked you that question, I don't know what your answer would be, but a lot of people say, 3, 4, 5. But the actual answer is 16. So people will have had 16 jobs, which is only employable by 14 years. So they will have 2 more jobs than the employable years. Isn't that, it's hard for me to fathom that.
Well, and I was thinking maybe 12, because I've seen people come in here, and it's amazing to me, especially, there used to be people that would lose their jobs, and it would be a repetitive thing, but they would last a lot longer than now. I have people that come in 1 year, they've had 5 different jobs, and they're not very old, and so that's what I was thinking, maybe 12. And I do wonder if marriages are going to get up there too, because I have so many people getting married. It is like that. And so, do you know a lot of people in In-N-Out that have been there 30 years?
Yes.
See, that's just incredible. That's wonderful. So for you, what has been the main thing for you that has drawn you to not ever leave?
First of all, I love what I do, but I would have to say I love the people that I do it with. You have to have, somebody asked me, at 46 years, obviously there's at some point in time, I'm going to have to think about retiring here, right? And somebody asked me, Ray, I know you loved Arizona. When you retire, will you go back to Arizona? I said, absolutely not. And I said, well, why not? You love it there. I said, because I kind of likened it to Moses, all right? And I said, how would it be for me to say, I'm going to take people to the promised land, or what I believe was the promised land, and I'm not going to take them and let them wander in the desert for 40 years. Of course, that was God's choice,
yes.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Moses wasn't there to end up in the promised land, but I said, there's many people who have come to Texas, and family included, because we've moved here, my wife and I, and In-N-Out Burgers moved here. And so whenever that day is that I do retire, I'll be staying in Texas.
Well, and it is a wonderful place to retire.
Absolutely.
Especially when it comes to, I mean, even just how cheap things are here compared to California or Arizona. My house, I had it on YouTube when it was for sale. And people were calling me saying, oh my gosh, your house is beautiful. 4 million, 3 million, 2 million. I just kept going, no, and no, no. And they're like, well, how much is it? I go, well, I'm not telling you. I'm just not even going to tell you. I want you to believe I have a $4 million home. And so, I finally did tell them. They're like, no way. I need to move to Dallas. I'm like, yes, you do. Move soon. And so that way, a lot of people are moving from California to here because of their retirement goes so much farther. It truly does. And it is a beautiful place, and it has all different kinds of landscaping, except ocean, unless you're down in Galveston or Houston, and the huge mountains. You can't compare with Arizona and California, the mountains. But yeah, it's just wonderful. And bringing people, now Moses wandered in the desert because of people sinning. God wanted to take them straight to the promised land. He just didn't get to. They did choose weird things out there.
They did, but back to the original question is that really my passion is for growing people and developing people.
Yeah.
And that's what really leads me, and that's what gets me up in the morning, and that's what allows my head to fall asleep at night, is knowing that I'm trying to lead people to the best place, to open up doors for them that they wouldn't see for themselves.
Well, and nowadays kids are coming out of high school. They're asking them what they want to major in like 9th grade. What are you going to do when you grow up? Mm-hmm. And they're coming here, they said they need to volunteer. If they're thinking about counseling, they want to volunteer here a little bit and see if this is what they want to do. And they are little. And they're like, I don't know what I want to do. I'm supposed to decide what academy to go into for high school. So that they're trying to choose in 9th grade, medical or business or veterinarian or nursing. It's just crazy. And so they have the impression from listening to their teachers that they should know what they want to do. And these kids going to college are trying to figure out what they want to do. And the kids that can't go to college, I talk because they don't have the money. I tell them all the time, nothing's going to hold you back. And when you pick what you want to do, a lot of times you don't need college. But I tell them stories of all these successful people who did not go to college. You can be equally as successful. It isn't where you go to school after you get out of high school. It is your work ethic, your personality as far as your attitude. If you're grumpy and you're angry and you're irritable and you're, hard to deal with or critical, it's going to be harder for you to excel than if you're positive, you have a great work ethic, and you have a great attitude. And they're like, that's all it takes? I said, yeah, really, honestly. If it takes talent, because you had skills. You had skills that came through when you started the In-N-Out Burger. But did you know you had those skills?
No, I mean, that's, there's an evolution of, people always ask about leadership. Leadership is always evolving. And you should be evolving as a leader. You should always be growing yourself and looking for materials that will help you grow another thing, another dimension. There's a huge social media was never around.
No.
When I was growing up, and all the other things. And so a lot of people that I mentor and a lot of people that I talk to, and I said, hey, get out of the social media and get onto the books and get onto the other stuff that's going to really help you grow as an individual. Did you know that less than 7% of every person in the workplace has a mentor? I heard it on CNBC News. And I was listening to this, and I was thinking to myself, where do you look? Where do you go? Where do you find someone? Where do you seek someone out? I read a great book about mentorship, and I read a good Solomon and his lessons of wisdom. There's a lot of wisdom in Solomon, even though he made a lot of mistakes.
Tell you what,
but I tell you that, listen and read a lot of his lessons, because his wisdom is absolutely amazing.
So would that be Proverbs?
Yes.
Well, and I had somebody asking me the other day. They said that if they could have one wish, and somebody said, I'll give you one wish. They said they wouldn't ask for $1 million because that's not much anymore. They'd ask for $1 billion. And I said, okay. And they go, you don't think that's a good idea? And I said, well, I think if I got asked that question, if I got to ask one wish and it could really be granted, I think I would probably ask for the wisdom of Solomon. I'd ask to be wise, even wiser than Solomon. Because Solomon was granted wisdom. That's what he asked for. And he was wealthy as well. Mm-hmm. And he had lots of things. Not to say that he always made the right choice, but wisdom is if you think about it, everyone, if they know that Solomon was the wisest man. And still to this day, they will say that. I would want that. I would want that. And I had a mentor. I had actually 2 different mentors at different times in my life. And to this day, I had one mentor that just passed away not very long ago. And I was amazed how it almost felt like a huge part of me died in a way. Because I am like him, in a way. Because everything I learned from him as far as what I do now, even the medical side and medicine and radio and TV and just how to run a business. And, and then when I was in grad school, I had a mentor that met with me and really launched me and believed in me. And when I was younger and a gymnast, I had a coach that believed in me. So he was similar, even though he was my coach. And so having people that believe in you and that you learn from. And when you look at like Tolkien and C.S. Lewis and all them, they met together, the 4 of them I think there were. It was like a mentorship. Every week they met together.
That's correct.
To advise each other. And so you really believe in that.
In fact, I'm teaching a class at church. The pastor had come to me and he asked me, he's probably got, the church I go to, he's probably got 2 or 3 years left there. And he asked me to teach a mentoring / new generation leadership at church. And I teach it once a month for a series of seven months. And I do believe in it. And I do believe in when someone believes in you, how can you not believe in yourself?
Yeah, it is. I think that in some ways that's all it took for me, right?
That's exactly it. Mm-hmm. Because the doubts in your mind, the questions that they say that life is 90% of the things, 10% that happens to you and 90% is how you react to it, right?
Right.
And if you have someone guiding you or believing in you, and even when you make mistakes, that because we're all going to make them, is that how you learn out of those mistakes and how you advise others to not make those mistakes in the future. You're saving someone from huge diversions in their road.
Well, and I think it's a disservice that a lot of media and schools have done, getting kids to doubt their elders. There's so much of that, even in the media, where the kids, in all the TV shows, the adults are stupid or, foolish. And yet, so they don't look towards mentors. And now, where do you go to church?
Grace Vineyard in Arlington.
Wow. Okay. So I wanted people to know that in case they live by there. They might want to go get mentored. Now, if people want to learn more about you or In and Out and have questions, how would they reach you?
You could leave me an email at rmaldonado@inandout.com, or you could call my assistant, Denise Heskamp. You could email her, dheskamp@inandout, and we could definitely get back to you, or I could answer any questions that you have, or you could call her and arrange a phone meeting.
That would be awesome. So R Maldonado, so RMALDONADO at
INNOUT.com.
Oh, INN Outburger. INNOut.com.
Yes.
Okay. And Denise Heskamp. Now her name is a little harder. Would it be D Heskamp?
D Heskamp at inandout.com.
HESSKAMP?
Yeah, you got it, man.
Cool. At inandout.com.
That's correct.
Awesome. That would be great. You could really help kids. And I just thank you for listening today. And I so thank you for being here, Ray. And you guys remember, if you'd like to have a great job, go to In-N-Out. And if you'd like to have a great burger, fries, shake, anything else?
I would just say that if you're going to eat an In-N-Out burger and it's going to be your first one, eat it at the store.
Eat it at the store. Don't get it to go.
Don't get it to go.
Get it
Go
fresh.
inside, sit down, and enjoy it firsthand. And then you'll really get the aspect.
So that you know why it's made that way. Fresh to eat, as though you just made dinner or lunch and sat down to eat.
Yeah, exactly. Serve it right off the grill.
Right off the grill.
Right off the grill.
That is our best advice for you guys today. And thanks for listening to Living Well with Ann Beal and Ray Maldonado. Take care.
Thank you again for joining us. Living Well with Ann Beal airs live every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. Pacific Time, 10 a.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Empowerment Channel. We can't wait to see you again next week.